Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, May 21st. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and we begin with breaking news. Fire crews are on scene of a brush fire near Chollas Parkway and University Avenue in the Redwood Village area. They've knocked down most of the flames, but are still putting out hot spots. Evacuations were ordered in case those flames reignited and moved back closer to homes. Smoke was visible for miles, and a steady breeze caused some concern in that canyon area. We have not been told how the fire started, but an investigation is underway. We will continue to monitor the situation and bring you any updates. Our other top story, for many, the waiting is over. It's back to work as restaurants and other businesses open their doors all the way today. Not all of them, of course, but the domino effect is happening. We will get to that and some new rules and changes you need to know before you go out. But first, another 11 deaths in the county due to COVID-19, bringing the total now to 241. There are 175 new cases, making for 6,315 overall. We begin our coverage with KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman.
They say our food to go at home was good. Can you imagine it on the table? Right out of the kitchen, fresh.
Shannon Beckwith and Tina Romano are the owners of STP Bar and Grill in Claremont.
STP, Shannon and Tina's place.
They reopened their dining room at 11 this morning.
We expected people here.
We're overstaffed for it.
And people did show up, dining out again for the first time in 2 months.
First day in an open restaurant. Kind of tired of the takeout, want to get the experience back of being normal again. This is the start.
State guidelines call for increased sanitation and physical distancing measures. STP has hired an additional staff member to help with cleaning, and guests here say they feel safe.
Oh yeah, totally comfortable.
I heard it on the news this morning, so we all talked about getting out, support the local businesses. Everybody should get out and support the local businesses. They need it.
When COVID-19 restrictions first hit, STP saw its sales cut in half. Since then, they've built up takeout sales, but the owners have been waiting for today.
This is huge. I mean, we're really happy to see all of our customers, back here.
Guidelines do pose some challenges.
A lot of it is going to be a little bit, difficult because we can't fill up our restaurant the way we were operating before.
Tables and bar stools have been spaced apart, and there's some other differences you might notice. Condiments are all being given out in single-use containers. Customers don't seem to mind. They're just happy to be back out.
Hoping people understand it's still a little new. Some places will probably be crowded and packed or whatever, but have a little compassion, take some time, and enjoy it.
County officials say it shouldn't be the job of law enforcement to enforce new guidelines, and they're hoping everyone will reopen responsibly. Not all restaurant owners are making the move to reopen their dining rooms right away, so a good tip might be to call the restaurant or call some of these retail stores to see if they are actually back to doing dine-in sales. Here in Claremont, Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
The Chicano Federation is raising concerns about how the economy reopening will impact San Diego's Latino community and frontline workers.
It's a little shocking to us that we're moving forward with such an accelerated rate of reopening without thinking about these inequities and what has led to them and how we are going to address them. Reopening isn't everything. We need to keep the human aspect of this at the forefront.
The organization plans to create a task force through the County of San Diego that will focus on a more equitable response to COVID-19, focusing on urban communities of color. Even as the country slowly gets back to business, the pandemic continues to take a toll on the economy. This week, San Diego County's estimated unemployment rose above 30%, a record high. That's according to a report released today by the San Diego Association of Governments. Today, the Labor Department reported 2.4 million Americans filed for unemployment last week, And although that was a drop from the previous week, the numbers are a bit deceptive since over 2 million more filed for pandemic relief benefits. So overall, nearly 39 million people have filed since mid-March, when lockdowns began nationwide. Leaders and health officials in the South Bay are asking for help to control the surge of coronavirus cases there. New research shows just how hard that region is being hit. KPBS reporter Claire Tregesser has the analysis.
Positive test rate in Chula Vista is 18%.
Scripps Health CEO Chris Van Gorder says Chula Vista and the rest of South Bay are being hit much harder by the coronavirus.
So the county is telling everybody it's 4% right now, which is true countywide, but that's not true in Chula Vista. We've had to transfer 56 patients from Chula Vista up to our northern hospitals.
This concern is borne out when you look at who has died due to the coronavirus in San Diego County. Over the past 2 months, the virus has shifted to hit especially hard people in the southern region of the county and people of Latino origin. That's different from when the disease first arrived. San Diego has seen about 230 total deaths due to coronavirus. Among the first 100, more than half were white people, while under a third were Latino. But as the disease progressed, it shifted its deadly impact. Among the next 100 deaths, the numbers flipped. Now, more than half of the people who died were Latino, while just about a third were white. The deaths are also now happening to more people in South Bay. Almost a third of the most recent 100 deaths lived there. The coronavirus continues to be more deadly for men. 56% of the people who died so far were men, while 44% were women. The median age of those who died was 78, and the bulk of deaths are among people with underlying health conditions. Just 3% of people who died did not have one. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
11 employees at a VA counseling center in Mission Valley that serves homeless veterans have tested positive for COVID-19. Staff believe the real number is likely higher. iNewsSource investigative reporter Jill Castellano explains how this outbreak unfolded.
The first employee with COVID-19 symptoms informed supervisors in mid-March that she was sick. But staff members told iNewsSource they were never officially notified that their coworker became ill. Documents show that employees were told they could, quote, feel free to spread out and work from their sick colleague's office, even though the building had not been properly disinfected. Within 3 weeks, 11 employees tested positive for COVID-19. And social workers in the homeless program aren't the only VA employees concerned about their working conditions. At a rally for VA nurses on May 1st, registered nurse Donna Cook said hospital staff are not being properly notified when they're exposed to COVID-19.
Our nurses and other hospital staff need timely and consistent notification of exposure to COVID-19 positive patients and staff. Having this information is vital for the safety and protection of those exposed, so that there is an opportunity for appropriate medical follow-up.
When asked about the outbreak in Mission Valley, a San Diego VA spokesperson told iNewsSource in an email that the VA's, quote, highest priority is the safety of our staff and the safety of the veterans we serve. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource investigative reporter Jill Castellano.
For more about the outbreak, go to inewssource.org. iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. The USS Theodore Roosevelt is back at sea after a massive coronavirus outbreak. The Navy says the San Diego-based aircraft carrier left Guam yesterday and moved to the Philippine Sea. More than 1,000 sailors were infected in the outbreak, and now the Navy says there are fewer crew members on board who will practice enhanced social distancing. 36,000 coronavirus deaths may have been prevented if the U.S. had acted faster with social distancing policies. That is the finding of new research from Columbia University. The first U.S. cases were reported at the end of January, but the government didn't urge people to avoid large groups until mid-March.
Our estimates are that a majority of deaths would have been prevented. Just over 50% of them would have been reduced for the total numbers that we see by May 3rd if we had acted just a week earlier.
The team looked at transmission rates from mid-March through the beginning of May, and they say as states reopen, leaders should respond quickly if they detect a rise in new cases. The findings have not been reviewed by other experts for accuracy. Two local leaders say they disagree with the county's response to making government records available, especially during the pandemic. KPBS health reporter Taryn Mento explains.
The local Society of Professional Journalists last week called on the county to fulfill all requests for public records, which could include emails and other communication around the county's response to the pandemic. The group urged the region's elected officials to clarify their stance on the move. Supervisor Nathan Fletcher told KPBS Midday Edition that initially delays were understandable, but not anymore.
I think we're many months into this now. And so I would be supportive of a change in posture and ensuring we're fully complying with the record requests.
He says he shared his view with the county. Supervisor Kristen Gaspar says she also supports fulfilling all requests and has too communicated her stance on this. A spokesman for the county says it has delayed 31 requests but fulfilled around 500 others since March 1st. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
All 31 of those outstanding requests are related to COVID. San Diego's 3 other supervisors did not oppose the county's decision to delay them. CVS Pharmacy is opening 7 drive-through COVID-19 testing sites tomorrow all around San Diego County. There are 2 sites in Chula Vista, 2 in El Cajon, 2 in San Diego, and 1 in Carlsbad. Patients will do a self-swab test in their car with a pharmacy technician giving instructions. CVS Health says results will be available in about 3 days. You are asked to register in advance online. Opening a business during the worst economic crisis in decades might not seem like the best idea, but as KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler shows us, for one City Heights coffee shop owner, the move has paid off.
It took Marlene Gonzalez over 3 years to line up everything for her business. She'd found the perfect spot off of El Cajon Boulevard between City Heights and Talmadge. She'd gotten the permits, the loans, trained and hired her staff, and lined up a roaster. She had finally settled on a name, Gem Coffee. All she needed to do was open, which was scheduled for late March. And then the pandemic hit.
It was, oh my goodness, it was very confusing times, to say the least.
Gonzalez decided to go ahead with the opening anyway.
While we were trying to push our open, a lot of businesses around us were closing, so that just felt bad in a way. But then I kept on thinking of how hard we worked, and we had our team on board, you know, we were ready.
Gone was the seating section, the furniture stowed away in the back. She felt she owed it to her neighbors and her 2 baristas to open up.
We were able to do both, service and maintain the safety of the public.
Marlene was lucky. As a coffee shop, the transition to takeout was easy. Her goal is to serve quality coffee at reasonable prices and act as a bridge between the working-class City Heights neighborhood and the gentrified Talmadge neighborhood.
I see ourselves becoming that anchor to both communities and hopefully merging those communities, whether there's activities that we could host that are more common in one community than the other, and having 2 communities join one.
Business has been steady, she says, featuring a mix of people looking for coffee and flowers to brighten up the homes they're now confined to. She has no regrets opening up, while it seems like the rest of the world is shutting down.
Full speed. Full speed ahead.
Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
We're following all of the latest coronavirus developments for you at kpbs.org. Click on the Tracking COVID-19 link on our homepage, and you'll be taken to a page with all of our recent reports. It is shaping up to be a beautiful weekend, but hot weather is on the horizon. Jeff Cornish has your forecast.
Our main weather headline here in far southern California will be tied to wind. It'll become breezy on Friday with some mountains and desert locations seeing gusts of wind in the ballpark of 30 to 50 miles per hour. So not off the charts windy in these areas. We can often deal with extreme wind in these areas, but it will be a breezy Friday, especially in those inland locations. And for the coastal forecast and for the city itself, it looks like a pretty nice pleasant time through Memorial Day weekend. Here we are on Friday, still running cool across much of the interior west with the heat restricted a bit, but it is on the map. It's going to be warm in the deserts. Still a little cooler than average for a lot of folks, though, into areas that are typically hot. And this trough is going to begin to lift out of here in due time. But with some extra jet stream energy in the neighborhood, we'll have a little more wind out there tomorrow. Tonight, though, down to 48 in Ramona, 66 in Borrego Springs, and around 60 on the nose into San Diego for your overnight low. Here we are on Friday, transitioning to a warm setup in the interior, 96 in Borrego Springs, 72 in San Diego. And again, there will be some wind in some of those interior areas. Deserts and mountains windiest tomorrow, especially through the canyons. Into the weekend, the heat will build a bit, and this is not going to be much worse than the norm as we are stepping into a typically hot time of the year in those Southern California deserts. So, coastal forecast, it is a gradual warming trend. Here we are on Memorial Day, sunshine and 77 delightful weather, a little warm into Tuesday. Taking you inland, here we have a transition from 74 on our coolest day Saturday, a beautiful setup, to 90 on Tuesday, certainly heating up then. And into the mountains, again, we have some wind as well as some sunshine on Friday, 65 down to 61 on Saturday, and there will be a warming trend taking us into the mid-70s by Tuesday. And the deserts, this is where we find the heat, and it's a tolerable heat for the weekend here, 92 on Saturday. It's pretty nice, but then 107. Heat rears its head on Tuesday as the heat certainly builds across the interior. I'm meteorologist Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
Actress Lori Loughlin and her husband are expected to plead guilty to conspiracy charges for their roles in the college admissions scandal. The couple is accused of paying $500,000 to get their two daughters into USC as fake crew team recruits. Under the plea deal, Loughlin will get 2 months in prison and 2 years of supervised release. Her husband, Massimo Giannulli, will get 5 months in prison. They will pay a combined $400,000 in fines. With schools closed, there are concerns that students are more susceptible than ever to online predators. Reports of technology-based sexual exploitation to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children have tripled during the pandemic. The San Diego Human Trafficking Task Force has seen an increase in cases involving young victims recruited by traffickers over social media. District Attorney Summer Stephan says there's a reason many victims don't tell their parents.
You know, their number one fear is having that lifeline, their phone, their tablet taken away from them by their parent. They want help, but they don't know how to ask for help. So I would say it's very important for parents to very directly tell your child, if something happens, someone is talking to you and you're uncomfortable, you can tell me and I will help you get rid of that predator, that source of harm, but I won't take away your device because we have this contract, this trust relationship. So we must directly talk to our children that when you're in a gaming room and you think you're talking to a 12-year-old, that person may be a 40-year-old predator. We must have these direct and honest conversations with our children.
And the San Diego Trafficking Prevention Collective says 90% of high schools researched across the county reported cases of sex trafficking, with the victim's average age at 16 years old. The training program is now available online. A group of mostly Democratic state lawmakers are asking Governor Gavin Newsom to protect businesses from lawsuits if employees and customers catch COVID-19 on their watch. KPBS reporter Amita Sharma has more.
16 state assembly members asked Newsom in a May 12th letter to restrict the, quote, threat of litigation to businesses that adhere to safety standards. This follows requests last month by operators of nursing homes and senior assisted living facilities for legal immunity. But Micah Starr Liberty, president of Consumer Attorneys of California, says special immunity for businesses is unnecessary and harmful to the public.
We've seen broad requests for immunity from the business communities all over the place. So we are doing our best to make sure that Californians, workers, people who fall ill have the right, if someone intentionally harms them or harms them through negligence, to recover for those damages.
More than a dozen states, including New York, have given senior care facilities more legal protections since the start of the coronavirus crisis. Newsom's office didn't respond to requests for comment. Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
Today, President Trump toured a Ford motor plant that is now making ventilators for the pandemic. And once again, he refused to wear a face covering, even though Ford requires them, and its officials wore them for the tour. At one point, the president took out his cloth mask and said he had been wearing it earlier. He said he could not put it on because he would be making a speech. With the loss of big business in the city of Escondido, how is the city doing in the near and distant future? I talked with Mayor Paul McNamara about the city's budget toward the end of this fiscal year and his plans for the future. Mayor, thank you so much for joining me today. The extreme circumstances have forced the closure of 2 more large businesses over the last week in Escondido. We have Soup Plantation, which is permanently closed now, and Nordstrom is focusing on online business. What is the loss of these retail giants going to mean for Escondido?
Well, as you know, we're a sales tax city, so the loss of 2 stores like that and others will certainly affect us long term. The good news is, and I'd like to just start out with a shout out to our city staff, who have really done a great job in terms of our budgeting to get us through the end of this year. And our July 1st, and then for next year as well. So I think we're actually in pretty good shape with some pretty good projections. But long term, the loss of any business, even a small mom and pop shop, it has an impact.
What reductions in the budget is Escondido facing going forward? And do you think that your public safety will continue to be fully staffed?
Actually, I'll answer the second part first. Yes, I think I'm very proud of our public safety sector. We were looking at about a $4 million deficit, but we were able to figure that one out. Now, one of the things that we are looking at is, and this will be tough, is a 1 cent sales tax. We did some polling and had some very strong numbers for the city. But of course, no elected official wants to ever say, hey, I want to raise your taxes in any way, shape, or form. I don't care what party you're in. But the truth of the matter is, if the residents of the city agree to that, that really solves our problem and also gives us some cushion to continue to keep things moving forward.
You joined other mayors vocalizing the need to restart the economy and move into phased opening. And since that time, we've seen the lifting of some restrictions. Do you think that we're moving fast enough in your view?
I believe this. I do think we need to change the discussion a little bit from essential and non-essential to what's working and what's not working. And the simple example that the mayors we sometimes use, if we can go to a Home Depot and those techniques are working, well, why can't we go to Bed Bath & Beyond or some other and get people back to work? And that's what we're asking our public health officials to consider is don't think of it as essential or non-essential. Think of it as these techniques and these stores work. So let's get people back to work.
And speaking of the next phase, you're following the guidance by the County Department of Health. Would Escondido benefit from a more localized control?
I think I would like a little bit more flexibility, okay? as a city, because I'm not convinced, one size fits all. We're the gateway to the backcountry and to the agricultural north. We may be able to do something differently than, say, a more urban San Diego. And if we suddenly found that our rates started to rise, then we would adjust, right?
Mayor, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share a few thoughts about Escondido.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, a new study suggests the U.S. might have avoided tens of thousands of deaths if social distancing policies had taken effect earlier. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And we have a breaking news update for you. A brush fire near Choias Parkway and University Avenue in the Redwood Village area has been knocked down. Evacuations were ordered in case those flames reignited and then moved back closer to homes. There's still no word on the cause yet, but an investigation is currently underway. And an update on our other top story. Even as restaurants got the go-ahead to reopen today, county health officials reported 11 deaths and 175 COVID-19 cases. Before businesses can welcome customers back inside, they need to post the county's safe reopening plan at their establishments. Guidelines include additional sanitation, ventilation, and physical distancing measures. Employees must wear face coverings as well. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.